let's not bury the lead here. Elden Ring is a certifiable masterpiece. It's both an elegant refinement of FromSoftware's design philosophies and an audacious step forward. Filled with drama, humor, melancholy, wonder, and awe-inspiring moments, it also has, hands down, the best and most refined combat of any action RPG. By far the developer's most assured game, is Elden Ring the gateway drug to the Dark Souls franchise that it's intended to be? For anyone who is a fan of FromSoft's games, Elden Ring will feel both familiar, but almost shockingly fresh. It makes early games like the original Dark Souls seem unrefined and claustrophobic. Elden Ring pulls together all the best ideas from the prior games and brings them entirely to fruition, and then places them in the context of a spectacular open world. Some open worlds, like in the recent Horizon Forbidden West, exist as elaborate set dressing for a relatively linear story. In contrast, Elden Ring's open world invites the player to be a genuine explorer and discover, or not, the narrative along the way. There are clues everywhere. In fact, every NPC, enemy, structure, and object contain some of the story's DNA. It is impossible to waste time, as every moment yields something useful. While it might be possible to temporarily lose the narrative thread, getting lost is just a happy excuse for more exploration. Getting stuck in too challenging combat is a chance to poke the map in a different place. In terms of size, the lands between might not be the largest of any open world game, but it is certainly the most dense with objects, enemies, and incidents. There is a map slowly pieced together region by region, but this isn't a Ubisoft map cluttered with make-work tasks. Nearly every one of the dozens of NPCs has a quest, but you won't find the objective on the map. The destination isn't the point after all. There is an immense variety in the biomes in the major regions, each with specific enemy types, architecture, and lore. The starting area of Limgrave is bucolic and impressive, filled with caves, dungeons, mines, and secret areas. It sets the template for what's to come. In a sense, Limgrave is an extended tutorial area that's bigger than most other games. It teaches the player what to expect from the rest of the map. In addition to having a legacy dungeon and unskippable demigod bosses, each area of the map fills in a new part of the narrative. While some of the map is locked behind these requisite boss fights, a great deal of it is open from the start. You can spend many hours exploring and leveling your character before facing your first requisite boss. Elden Ring solves the problem of moving painlessly around the world by giving the player many options. Checkpoints, called Sites of Lost Grace, the Elden Ring version of Dark Souls bonfires, are ridiculously plentiful. Players can freely teleport between them. Sites of Grace also have a subtle, glowing trail pointing the player to the next important location. There are also hidden portals that transport the player to distant and unexpected locations. Sometimes these are immense hidden areas that exist out of time and outside the map entirely. They can even be deadly traps from which it is difficult to escape. Unlike past Dark Souls games, verticality is hardwired into the world, and Elden Ring gives players several tools here as well. First, players have a horse, allowing them the ability to cover large distances and even fight effectively on horseback. Torrent can use swirling pools of wind to leap impressively up the sides of cliffs. In a first for Dark Souls, though not for Sekiro, players can jump. It seems like a small thing, but it feels great to explore in a new way. Some open world games feature emergent gameplay, where a game's systems interact in unexpected ways. Not Elden Ring. Everything in this game is intentional and precisely placed. Every sightline, enemy placement, and environmental clue has been considered. What's different in each playthrough is the player and their specific build, abilities, and choices along the way. Based what you find and the path you take, much of your specific journey will be unique. If there's one thing that Soulsborne games are known for, it's their combat. Of course, each game in the franchise, some of the games emphasized parries and defensive play, others push players to be more aggressive. In Elden Ring, FromSoft has taken the best mechanics of all the games and added a few new ideas that players will love. There are new jumping forms of light and heavy attacks, and horse-mounted versions of them. There is a new guard counter that rewards simply blocking with a shield or weapon. Power stancing with 2 of the same weapon type returns from Dark Souls 2. Combine over a dozen possible offensive or defensive moves with the 10 character classes and hundreds of weapons, sorceries, and incantations, and the result is combat that rewards every playstyle and level of experience. In Elden Ring, players can also add Ashes of War, basically weapon arts, and call on spirit summons to aid them in combat. Calling on human players is easy too, and Elden Ring makes cooperative exploration painless. As in many of FromSoftware's games, human and boss enemies have access to the same moves and powers that the player has, making boss and mini-boss fights as challenging as always. Elden Ring has some of the best and most memorable boss fights in the series, and there are very few, if any, gimmick bosses with an obvious weak spot. What's different is that, except for the main story bosses, many of the bosses encounters out in the world can be skipped or run away from, to be attempted later. Elden Ring borrows Sekiro's stealth mechanic, making it possible to sneak past many enemies or to approach them unseen for a backstab. Given the size of the world, the catalog of human, animal, magical, and monster type enemies is immense. As always with Souls, even the weakest foe is capable of killing you, should you not play skillfully. At the same time, every enemy encounter is satisfying and rewarding. While Elden Ring still has an enormous number of opaque systems to understand, moment to moment, it's the easiest and most immediately accessible game FromSoftware has made. We've talked about the ease of movement. Elden Ring adds crafting in a smart way, allowing players to make basic consumables out in the field. Every Dark Souls game has had a hub area. Elden Ring has the Round Table Hold, which is outside the map proper. It's home to a number of important class trainers and NPCs, and holds keys to the game's story. In Elden Ring, players no longer need to return to the hub to level their characters. They can do so at any site of grace. The Souls games have a reputation for being punishing, especially for new players. Elden Ring is still a very challenging game, but the difference is players can often bypass difficult enemies until they are ready, and there are plenty of worthwhile things to do as they prepare. Although the immense and labyrinth legacy dungeons provide the classic Dark Souls experience, small things like sites of grace adjacent to boss arenas take some of the sting out of repeated attempts. As with all FromSoft games, players will still need to keep an eye on stamina and health during combat, but out in the field just exploring, stamina is of no concern. Elden Ring's world building and story design are at least in part the work of novelist George R.R. Martin. Its characters and lore are firmly in the tradition of other Souls games. The narrative, and your role in it, is told indirectly, and it is gratifying to piece the puzzle together as you go. In your quest to defeat the demigods, you will meet a wide range of NPCs. Some are weird, some are dishonest, some are noble, and almost all of them share the melancholic feeling that pervades the world. Without giving anything away, there are more than a few moments of real emotional richness and depth. Compared to some recent games, Elden Ring is not a bleeding-edge showcase for the latest graphical effects. Nevertheless, its art direction is immaculate and spectacular. Every area is haunted by relics of a long-lost age. It is always interesting to look at and often beautiful and awe-inspiring. New to the series is a day and night cycle that changes the monster population, lovely weather effects, and a head-spinning variety of architectural styles. Elden Ring has the most extensive character creation tools in the Souls series. It's a large leap forward, and a lot of fun to tinker with. Elden Ring's music sets a new high mark for the franchise. Composed by Yuka Kitamura, it changes from powerful action cues in the boss fights to genuinely unnerving, tension-filled orchestra textures in the dungeon areas. The music in the open world appropriately reflects the tone of the landscape. It's also a cue to impending combat. Environmental audio and voice acting are equally effective. The game's minimalist UI is intuitive and especially unobtrusive. Veteran Soul players will need to add some new controller assignments to their muscle memory. On PS5, graphic options are relatively limited. There's a choice of performance or graphics modes, and a few HDR settings. There were a few minor issues with scenery pop-in and lighting out in the world, but nothing that seriously degraded the experience. Developer Hidetaki Miyazaki stated that Elden Ring is the most accessible game in the Dark Souls franchise. It's unassailably true. Elden Ring has more quality of life improvements and features than any game in the series. It offers the widest range of approaches to combat and exploration. At the same time, the combat can still be extremely challenging. Elden Ring has a lot of gameplay mechanics that aren't always explained. The narrative is non-linear. Souls veterans get this storytelling style, but brand new players might not. For fans of the series, Elden Ring is like several years worth of Christmas and birthday presents rolled into one. As approachable as Elden Ring is, new or impatient players might be overwhelmed. Elden Ring is not a literal follow-up to the Dark Souls series, but players of Dark Souls, Bloodborne, and Sekiro will feel some comforting deja vu. We won't call it recycling, but some of the Elden Ring's boss designs, movesets, and environments have been seen in some form before. All the favorite Dark Souls tropes are here too. Healing flasks, ambushes, secret areas, shortcuts, and more. It's still ridiculously addictive, and the open world just makes it more so. Elden Ring is an awe-inspiring achievement, both a summary and bold step forward. It fuses FromSoftware's best and most effective ideas with an endlessly engaging open world. Its combat is the most refined of the series, challenging yet acceptable to new players. Elden Ring includes an incredible amount of quality content. More importantly, it offers a captivating, polished experience, fraught with danger, and filled with beauty. But what are your thoughts on Elden Ring from what you've seen so far? Let us know down in the comments below, and as always, stay tuned to COG Connected for all your video game needs.